Welcome into the WCS Coaches Show. I'm District Athletic Director Patrick Whitlock, and our game of the week tonight is Ravenwood at Franklin. And with me, I have the two head coaches of these respective schools, Coach Rodriguez from Ravenwood and Coach Adkins from Franklin. Gentlemen, welcome into the show.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, Ravenwood currently sits at 4-0, ranked number 2 in the state in 6A, and has a 2-0 region record. Franklin is currently 1-3 and 0-2 in the region. So, Coach Rodriguez, we'll start with you. It is your first year in Tennessee as a head coach, Williamson County, taking over a program that's had a lot of success. How's it been going so far? Is it everything you thought it would be? Any curveballs? I'm sure there've been plenty, but just take us through like how your first few months have been.
I would definitely say I think the honeymoon period is over. You know, when you get into the rigors of the season, right? There's just so much from a management standpoint. But, Coach Hester obviously set me up for a lot of success, taught me a lot about, how high school football works in the state of Tennessee. It's a little different than California. I think one thing that me and my family have fell in love with is just the community aspect. I mean, all the Williamson County schools, that's something that we noticed when we first moved out here. From the student body buy-in, to the attendance at games. I think Ravenwood does it, the best. And for us to experience that the last 2 years as an assistant and now, kind of leading the program, it's a blessing. And I was just happy for the games to get started. I talk to the kids a lot about, I enjoy more than anything the January to August, grind, so to speak. Because the Friday nights in the fall are all about them. So the fact that we're in then to see them experience success in the early get-go, we're excited to keep this thing rolling.
Yeah, once that summer hits, it goes pretty quick, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely.
Sure. All right, Coach Adkins, in year 2, very successful year 1, 6-6 in a program that has traditionally been strong, maybe down for a couple of years, off to probably a slower start this year than you would like. But talk about some of the positive changes you've implemented in this program and kind of where you're going to go from here.
I think, coming in that first year, it was all about, kind of changing the culture and the mentality of what, a football team should look like and how it should feel. And like you said, it's not, the expectations of being 1-3 was not our standard. The teams have been frustrated. The coaches have been frustrated. But what I love about them is that, they're still working. They're still, talking about the little things, because that's ultimately what's really kind of got ourselves beat these past couple games. I mean, we're 5 points from being 4-0 as well. And so, you kind of look at the scoreboard and you're like, well, defense is holding teams to under, the most they've given up is 23 points. These past 2 outings, they've played unbelievable. Offensively, have been struggles. But if you stand back and look, we have 4 returning starters on both sides of the ball. So you're looking at, 18 spots, you're guys that either not played a lot or they're younger guys that were playing. And so you're kind of learning as you go on the fly. And so they see that and they understand that because, I always tell them, when I was coaching with Coach Fitzgerald in Metro a long time ago, he always said, Coach, you could probably get away with, 10 guys doing what if 10 guys do everything right, you might get away with making a big play. He goes, but if it's 9 or 8, you're not going to be able to move the ball. And I think offensively, that's been our struggle, is that there's been times where we've had, 8, maybe 7 guys do the right thing. And it's at a crucial part where, we just got a first down and now we lose a 5-yard loss and we're standing at 2nd and 15. And I think I said that's the lack of experience on that side of the ball. But, having a sophomore quarterback, Ryder Gregg and Isaac Burgos, those guys have been doing a really good job of maturing as they go, because they'll do things that sophomore quarterbacks shouldn't do, but there's a lot of things they'll do that a sophomore quarterback does, and you got to kind of keep them reeled in. So it's been definitely a trial for us, but I keep telling our guys at the end of the day, just focus on Franklin football and devil's in the detail, because that's what's gotten us beat this past couple weeks.
No doubt. So Coach Rodriguez, you guys are 4-0. Whether it's fair or not, some people might have said, they started off a little slow. You get down by 3 scores against Madison Ridgeland on the road, pretty far from home. You take a 2-point conversion to beat Lipscomb. but weeks 3 and 4 have been vastly different. The offense seems to have really gotten rolling. So what has been the difference maybe in weeks 1 and 2 versus weeks 3 and 4?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's an adjustment for all of us, right? As much as we wanted to kind of maintain, what we've been doing the last couple years, there are also subtle differences, in my philosophy bringing to the program. So, for example, our offense does look very similar to last year, but there are a lot of fine details within that are very different. So it took our kids pretty much the whole summer to kind of adapt to how Coach Davis calls plays compared to how Coach Hester calls plays. And then also just we have some new additions into the program. So getting them to understand how we do things at Ravenwood High School, I think, attributed to kind of that slow start. But we also played 2 high-quality opponents in Madison Ridgeland Academy and Lipscomb Academy. People don't realize how hard of a trip it is going out of state, getting 100-plus kids situated in hotel rooms, getting their meals coordinated, finding a place for us to have a walkthrough. And then, I'm telling you, Mississippi heat and humidity in August is different than the state of Tennessee. So, but I mean, in a positive, me and the kids have talked about this. You couldn't really script. If I were to say what my first 4 games of being the head coach at Ravenwood High School could have looked like, I don't think that there's a better script from, being down in our first game in that hostile environment out of state, coming back and winning that game, to kind of rolling the dice a little bit, like something that I've learned from Coach Hester, and going for a 2-point conversion, to playing 1 home game and finally having as close to a complete game as possible, to then, going on the road against Summit. It doesn't matter. We throw out the records when we're playing county games, right? Because every team is going to be well prepared, well coached, and they all have athletes. So to be able to go out there and have that performance in that environment at Summit, against a Coach Coleman-led team, it's like a movie, And I'm just really proud of our coaches and our kids, and we want to sustain. We don't want to peak in August, right? We want to start being the best versions of ourselves as we get closer to November, and hopefully we're on the right track.
So Coach Atkins, Coach Rodriguez talks about not peaking in August. I know it's obviously kind of where you're shifting your attention to.
Correct.
1 and 3, but as you kind of mentioned, you're essentially 3 possessions away from being 4-0. When you look at it, obviously that game against Shelbyville a little odd, because you line up to play on a Friday night, and then you end up having to come back and play on a Saturday. Not ideal.
Correct.
Sometimes that can definitely work against you. So with the slower start than you like, what is kind of the message to your team as you get ready to face a highly ranked opponent tonight?
I would say, the situation like, Coach Rodriguez kind of touched on it. I think, our region is a tough region. It's going to get us ready for the playoffs. And so, Coach Rodriguez and Coach Hester at Ravenwood, they had to go out of state to get teams to play them. And I think as far as schools in our county, we have a hard time playing teams because they don't want to play us. And so you have to kind of, I was looking at week 10, and I was contacting, state from Memphis to Knoxville, and, Southern Kentucky to North Alabama to try to find that week 10, and we were finally able to get Cordova. But for us, playing a good team like Ravenwood, like we always tell them 2 things, we always want to make that climb. Like everybody's climbing that mountain. Everybody wants to be on the summit. Everybody wants to be the number 1 team in the state. And so you have to fix your gaze on your goal. And so when you look to the left or the right, when you're climbing, that's when you'll start to stumble. And so we just kind of tell them the preparation of what gets us ready for the playoffs. Like we want to make the playoffs. Like we have opportunities to make it into the playoffs. And so what can we do to do that? And the second thing is, I always talk about, one of my favorite Teddy Roosevelt quotes is he talks about the man in the arena. And we always talk about it. It's not really about, the fans are great in Williamson County and the parents are unbelievable in their support. But at the end of the day, it's the guys on the field that matter the most. They're the ones, like Coach was saying, January to August, you're preparing 97% for a 3% return. Like you only get, when you break it down by the minutes, you're preparing a whole lot more than what you're getting on your return. And so when, things are not going well or things are struggling, people will try to affix their gaze from the climb and start trying to listen to people outside and stuff like that. And it takes senior leadership, which, we've had guys like Santino Bruni and Tegan Lee have done a really good job of like, hey guys, like we're not out of this fight. Like we just got to take it, one play at a time. And I told offensively and defensively, we focus on 12 feet. Like we offensively, let's get 12 feet of play, and that'll take care of itself. Defensively, can you hold that offense to 12 feet? That's how so small the game of football is won and lost is by feet, or you can argue by inches. And so I just keep telling them, keep focusing on our goal of sustaining drives offensively and to stopping drives defensively, and those losses will turn into wins.
So both teams got some marquee players, so some really headline names, particularly not just in this county, but across the state. So we'll start with you, Coach Rodriguez. Starts at your quarterback position, Femi Babalola and Maverick Chance. Not a lot of programs out there have two Division I quarterbacks. You've also got some other talent around them, Jalen Pollard on the defensive side of the ball, Danny Brown. So a lot of high-profile names. Speak to kind of their contributions. I know Danny is new this year, but you got three core guys that have been a staple of the program for years.
Yeah, and, I think they get enough shine and accolades for their on-field accomplishments, but, the things that those guys do from a programmatic standpoint, walking into a program where you have 40 seniors, right, and we emphasize it being a player-led program, from holding, the young guys accountable to, showing actually what it takes to be and to have that championship mentality. That's what separates the Mavericks, the Femis, the Danny Browns, the Jalen Pollards from a lot of other high school players is they take those aspects more serious than, their quarterback training or their DB work, right? That stuff is important to them. We pride ourselves on having, a really, really good culture in high school football. And it's because those players have bought into that philosophy, and it just trickles down to the underclassmen. I think if you sat down with Maverick and Femi, they would talk about their past teammates from classes before them. And that's why it really makes my job easy. It's because kids come into our campus and they know what the expectation is to be a Ravenwood Raptor football player. And I'm just so proud of them, right? They're going to go on no matter what. If Femi starts for 2 or 3 years at whatever college he decides to go to, whatever Maverick decides to do at the Naval Academy, those kids are going to come back here 5-6 years down the road as great young men. And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. And I'm just super blessed and proud of their accomplishments, not only on the field, but how they represent their families, their community, and their faith.
So, Coach Atkins, for you, it comes back to Luke Thompson, 3-star, 4-star, depending on what recruiting service you look at. Tennessee commit. He came to Photo Day, obviously a great young man, probably a lot of the same attributes that Coach Rodriguez just spoke about his players. But, with a sophomore quarterback, some growing pains, so how has Luke been in terms of, obviously, a lot of guys are going to look to him to kind of lead the way? I think,
a situation with Luke, like he's been especially his senior year, he's been a lot more vocal because he's kind of the shy or the person, he's very silent, but when he speaks, it echoes profoundly with the team. And so it's a situation where, he not only talks to the quarterbacks, or like when he's not in, he's coaching that slot receiver. Mekhi Howard, a sophomore that does, that shines for us from time to time, or, punt return, talking to the younger guys that when he's not in, he's coaching them up on like what he's seen in the past or what he's done in the past to kind of set him up for success. We've been doing the Feed the Fleet, and we went to that clinic that Ravenwood hosted about Feed the Cats, and we love it, and the kids love it, and we've been, getting faster that way too. But you can't coach that kind of speed that Luke Thompson has, and so what I love about it is that he doesn't talk about after. It's the beforehand, the preparation, the setup, so that whether you run 22, 23 miles an hour, or if you run 16 miles an hour, but you give yourself an opportunity to make yourself successful, whatever phase of the game it is. And that really kind of, helps us out. And jokingly, When I first got here last year, I called him cheat code because it's just when he's on the field with that kind of speed, it's like, you feel like you're cheating. And we're laughing today, the other day, preparation for Ravenwood. We're like, we got a cheat code. Well, Ravenwood's got cheat codes, man. They got guys everywhere. So it's like you can't say, all right, we're going to stop the run or we're going to stop the pass. It's like, where could we kind of give them fits at? And I said, well, thank goodness I ain't on defense this week, boys. So y'all take care of that because I was watching film when I think it was Femi. He took a quarterback run against Green Hill and just looked like he was walking on water, how fast he ran, and got to the sideline and scored. And I was like, Wolf boys, like we got to take good angles and do good jobs just to give us an opportunity to keep a guy like that. And we saw Maverick, I think it was against Summit a little bit too, do some things. So it's like, once again, having someone that has that ability to understand what that looks like, it's helping to build the culture that we're trying to build at Franklin of like Coach Rodriguez. I mean, he hit a home run with it. Like, it's a player-led team. They understand the standard, and most importantly, life after football, whether it's college or whatever, how far they go, they want to come back because that's who they are and the character that their parents and how they've built them to be good young men, and us as coaches have made that influence on their life.
All right, so we talked about the marquee guys. Let's list a few guys that maybe are under the radar that are instrumental to your team. Coach Rodriguez, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, for us, everything begins and ends in the trenches, right? You pull up the Tennessean 615 preps, whatever it is, every publication is going to talk about our skill guys, but how we build our program at Ravenwood is in the trenches. So, I mean, those 5 guys on the offensive line, and really we've played probably 7 or 8 this year. For them to replace 5 other starters from the previous year, 2 of them who are playing high-level college football right now, just kind of speaks volumes to what we're all about at Ravenwood, right? I mean, starting with Josh Hosford at center. I mean, this is a kid that has backed up, Jasper Quisenberry for the last 2 years, didn't receive a lot of reps at the center position in varsity contest, and just totally dedicated himself to Coach Q's offseason program and doing everything that he needed to do to hopefully play 15 games as a senior. And then you go down the line, right? I mean, we have our right tackle has started out as a quarterback at Ravenwood and Lucas Gusa, right? And then transitioned to kind of a hybrid H-back tight end. And now he's the starting right tackle at Ravenwood High School, has never played a down of offensive line up until June. So just the selflessness that we have up front. I mean, Grant Gullett, Cam Fazalot, Eli Webb. I mean, you can go up and down the line from an offensive standpoint. And then taking that over to the defensive line, where we knew we were going to lay our hat on the defensive side of the ball this year. And you have guys like Lucas McCollum, who's one of the only, if not the only, 2-way starter that we have in our program. Sam Rowan, I mean, the addition of Danny Brown. I mean, we have depth in those positions in the interior. And if you plan on playing football in this state late until November and early December, you have to have that depth up front. And just what those guys have accomplished without getting the recognition that some of our other guys do, we would not be where we're at without that group, and that's the group that hopefully will lead us to our end goal.
Coach Atkins, who are your some under the radar guys?
I'm going to kind of go with Coach Rodriguez. I mean, like I said, with our 2 returning starters on offense, Luke Thompson and our center Cameron Higgins. I joked about it at media days that Higgy, he had gotten bitten by a tick, so he couldn't eat red meat all of his junior year. So he was 180, 190 pounds soaking wet, and so. But he would give you everything he's got. So now he's been eating red meat, so he's back up to about 205, 210, which is not big, but he'll give you every ounce that you got. And he's our general on the field as far as offensively, as far as helping set the protections, communicating with the line. Noah Robinson is a senior. He got a little bit of playing time last year, but not a lot. He's stepped up and helped us out at right tackle. We got a couple of juniors, Eli Ruth and Simon Sessions, our guards. Like, those guys are playing, and then our left tackle. JJ, Justin Arden, like, he is by far leaps and bounds. I've been so excited for him because he was just a skinny, tall little giraffe as a sophomore, and he's now about 245 pounds. He's gained almost 30 pounds in the offseason. I've just been constantly feeding him. He's been working out and doing great things on the defensive line. For us too, it's all about trench life. We got a senior, Jude Wheeler, who kind of came on last year as a junior, kind of got a couple games of some, meaningful playing times that's kind of helped him out, kind of anchor in the middle. Xander Dykstra, another senior, Jack Robichard, but 97, sophomore of ours, Zion Brown, he's been doing some good things for us that really, we're excited because like I said, we're playing guys with not a lot of experience. Ryder King at safety, number 33, he's a sophomore. He's been stepping up and helping out, with Lane Anderton at safety. But to me, I think our silent professional, and he's been opening up more, and I'm excited. He's got a contagious smile, and his laugh is contagious. Is our starting running back, 22, Joseph Panea. We call him JoJo, and he's a hard runner. He's small in stature, but he's got a big heart and a big spirit. He never questions. It's always yes, sir, and he's always been that kind of guy that he's that guy in the huddle that tells the guys that we're never out of the fight. We're one play away. I mean, you look at last week against Coffee County, I think it was 2nd and 10, and I called, just a basic run play. JoJo gets stuffed at the line of scrimmage and then gains 18 yards. He pulls 3-4 dudes. Just the will for him to put the team on his back at times at critical moments that sustain us a drive that gives us the opportunity to try to go take that lead. And I think he's been instrumental to influencing, once again, sophomore running backs, Liam Hodges and Chase Jennings. And so it's been guys that have, not a lot of experience, but owning their role in a moment's notice to be able to kind of, right the ship for the team and keep the team, in the fray of, hey, we're literally one play away. And I think those guys have been doing a really good job of kind of echoing that sentiment for sure.
All right, let's talk about the game a little bit. I know, you don't want to give away any part of your game plan, even though not a whole lot of time to make adjustments at this point. But let's just talk about some preparation for this week, some things maybe you're concerned about. Coach Rodriguez, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing, kind of like I said, right, it doesn't matter what any of our county opponents' records are going into these games, right? I mean, we have phenomenal coaches throughout this county, so these teams are going to be prepared. I think what we have to be prepared for more than anything, right, is the explosiveness on the offense from Franklin, right, and how you watch their film, all 11 players rally to the ball. I mean, it doesn't matter where they're at on the field, and that's a credit to the coaching staff because I know that they, emphasize the effort getting to the ball. And then I think kind of some of the external factors that we have to deal with, right? It's obviously Franklin's homecoming. And I know one thing based on my little experience in this county, Franklin Admirals do it right in their home game setting. So those kids are going to pack the house. It's going to be loud. It's going to be noisy. And, we can't feed into that, right? We got to concentrate and control what we control. I think we definitely need to clean up some of the turnover stuff. I know Tate kind of called me out a little bit on the show about cleaning up some of those fumbles and stuff, and he's 100% right. We can't do that. I think we're even in the turnover margin through the first 4 games of the year, and that's just not how we want to play if we want to be successful. I think special teams is going to play a huge part in this contest. It's going to be a highly contested game where, like Coach has said about their season, right? 3-4 possessions, 3 or 4 plays is going to make the difference in this game. So we're looking forward to hopping on a bus at around 5 o'clock and taking the trip over to Franklin because it's going to be what you want out of high school football in the state of Tennessee. That's what the atmosphere is going to look like on Friday. So.
Yeah, two great student sections. I know even when Franklin was down, I remember them sending a huge crowd to Ravenwood one year. Unfortunately for me, they were never down in basketball, so they always had good crowds. But that's the way it is. So, Coach Adkins, what are you kind of prepping for this game?
I think for us defensively, just keep the status quo. I think we've done a really good job communicating. We're going to have to because, like I said before, they've got dudes in every level. So it's doing our job. Even when we're doing our job, if someone, is not completing theirs, we can't go do their job because as soon as we do, we're going to give up a big play. I think a situation offensively, we've got to sustain drives. I think we've got to be able to move the ball and have a little bit of lady luck on our side. I'll be honest, but I think the situation too is like he said, special teams. They got an amazing kicker. I mean, we've repped kickoff return a little bit, but I mean, he puts that thing, out of the stadium. So it's like you try to invest time in other places. So, punt return, punt, you're getting that kind of opportunity in our kickoff as well. But once again, I think it's just the little things, doing our job and trusting the guys to the left and right of you. Can't give them the ball. Like we can't turn the ball over on them because they don't need any help. We're the ones who might need a little bit of help on this Friday night. But Coach Rodriguez said the best, man. It's going to be an unbelievable atmosphere. Our fans are going to pack. The Ravenwood faithful, they're going to come down too, and it's going to be a really good game. And as far as homecoming, we've been kind of dealing with all week, doing floats and doing this and doing that. And I think our team's done a really good job of staying locked in and staying focused on the task at hand.
Do you view homecoming? I mean, obviously it's great for the school to get involved, but it's a little bit of a distraction, right? There's so many other things going on. You got kids going to float builds, and you got pep rallies on Friday, and maybe I don't know the whole structure of what goes on the entire week, but it can be a little bit of a distraction. Right?
A little bit's an understatement. It's a big distraction. And when I was told, I didn't have a say. When I was told Ravenwood was our homecoming game, I said, okay. I was like, all right, so that's going to be a.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I was like, we sure about that? But because no matter homecoming or not, like we have to bring our A+ game with Ravenwood because if we don't, it's not going to hold up to standard. So, but yeah, I think homecoming is a big distraction. But like I said, our kids have done a really good job of letting their hair down and enjoying the homecoming festivities. But at the end of the day, like they know when to flip the switch. Like, hey, it's time to be locked in and get ready for tonight's game for sure.
All right, so a question I always like to ask, pregame preparation, any superstitions?
Yeah, I mean, the kids are starting to kind of figure out what my kind of routine is, but also it comes with the attire, right? Like, we typically wear white on the road, so I like to accessorize myself in the same as the kids with a white wardrobe.
Coach Hester really did rub off on you.
He did, man. He did, But no, I mean, we've actually been trying to keep the same routine that we've had for the last 3 years. We have added like an additional walkthrough portion to it, but I'm such a creature of habit that if anything is off kilter, even by a minute, I feel like I'm the one freaking out, and my coaching staff has to put me back in my place and be like, Coach, it's fine. We're 2 to 3 minutes off of the schedule. It's all going to work out. But that's just how I am. I do like to spend some time around the kids, listening to some music, kind of, just letting loose a little bit prior to the game. I've learned as I've gotten older in this profession, right, that your kids feed off your energy as the head coach so much. So if you're going in, tense and nervous and looking that way, your team has a tendency to play that same way. So I want to send off the vibes that, I'm confident we're in a good space, we're prepared, and then let's get after it.
Coach Atkins, what about you?
To quote the famous Michael Scott, I'm not superstitious, just a little stitious. So,
That's a great quote.
So, like for me, when things are rolling, you try to keep the same thing because I read a good book about it that says, it's really not kind of superstitious. It's because it's the habits that has led to your success. So you want to try to keep doing that. And we've been struggling, I said, this past couple games. So I've been kind of mixing things up. But one thing that's always been going since my first day of coaching high school football and even in college, my wife, she always sends me a little, like she'll make sure I'm not in my office, and she'll sneak down and she'll tape up a little envelope, and she'll have little reminders and stuff like that, and she'll find some inspirational quotes. And she's been joking, saying she's running out of quotes. I said, we got to expand our horizon and stuff too. But stuff like that. I think the kids, they have their own little routines and stuff like that, and kind of Coach Rodriguez keeps hitting it out of the park as far as like us as a staff. I'm always constant. They feed off of you, and so if you're tight or if you're tense, they're going to play tight and tense. But if you're loose and energetic, which that's kind of who I am, the kids will be a lot more relaxed in a high impact game like Ravenwood versus Franklin.
All right, we'll close with this. If this goes right tonight, you feel good about where you're at. Coach Rodriguez?
Yeah, no doubt, and we kind of have a rule, right? Regardless of the situation, win or lose, you're going to mourn it or celebrate it for 24 hours, and then it's on to the next one, because we talked about homecoming stuff. Coach Hester didn't do us at Ravenwood any favors either, because we got Ingle Martin and the CPA Lions coming for our homecoming game. So, whatever happens, I know it's going to be a highly contested game, and then we'll either celebrate it or we'll mourn it, put it to bed, and get ready for the next opponent.
I think Coach Rodriguez needs to write a book, man, because I love it. I love it, mourning or celebrating. I think for us, all 11 of us, if we get 11 guys doing their job, it'll show how special this team can be. I think, that's going to be the devil in the detail. If we all do our job, we all fire off on the same kind of level of intensity, Franklin football could be something that people will talk about for a while now.
All right, gentlemen, we appreciate you guys coming in. Sometimes people ask me, what makes Williamson County football so good? I think it's the coaches. We got 2 fantastic coaches here. Appreciate you guys being here today.
Yeah, yes, sir. Appreciate you guys.
And make sure you get over to Hillsborough Road tonight. Get there early if you want a parking space, or else you're going to have to walk a little bit. Should be a great atmosphere. 7 o'clock kickoff. Ravenwood at Franklin. We'll see you there.